A high school girl teeters dangerously on the rooftop's edge, the wind fiercely tugging at her uniform, making her skirt and collar flutter wildly. Her gaze is fixed on the distant horizon, her body tense with emotion. A teenage boy in the same uniform peers up at her, breaking the tense silence with a crude and direct sexual proposition. Kurumi's face blushes a deep crimson as she turns to face him, her voice rising in anger as she accuses him of being a complete pervert for even considering such a thing. The boy, unfazed, stares back with a straight face, loudly denying any perverse intentions. Kurumi continues her tirade, pointing out the absurdity of his invitation, which she rightly identifies as lecherous behavior. Yet the boy appears genuinely bewildered, addressing her by name, and reminding her of her earlier intention to end her life by jumping. Kurumi furrows her brows, puzzled by his point. She wonders aloud if he believes she's obligated to have sex before she dies, her voice tinged with disbelief. In a heated moment she snaps at him, branding him not just a pervert, but a total piece of human trash. The boy, determined to make himself heard, raises his voice to drown out her insults, insisting she has it all wrong. He passionately explains that his feelings are rooted in love, and it is precisely because he loves her that he made such a bold request. Kurumi's brow furrows deeper as she stares at him, utterly unable to process the logic behind his words. Sensing her hesitation, the boy shifts his approach, admitting he knows why she climbed up there, to use the sunset as a final beautiful backdrop for her heart's end. Yet he reveals his intention to ruin that moment, warning her that if she chooses to jump now, her final memory and the story of her death will be forever tied to the words of a lecherous man. He shouts at her, challenging her to consider if she is truly okay with that being her legacy. Kurumi flinches, the weight of his words hitting her hard. The realization strikes her with a force that makes her expression falter. Undeterred, the boy insists once more on his love for her, recalling an interview he read in a magazine where she confessed her admiration for beautiful scenery. With a pointed finger, he challenges her, questioning if this awkward, unsightly encounter is truly the conclusion she had in mind for herself. Kurumi is visibly rattled, never having anticipated such an extreme measure or such an odd approach to intervention. The boy remains unflinching, indifferent to the possibility of her loathing him forever, as long as he can prevent her from harming herself. Witnessing her resolve begin to waver, he offers a faint smile and beckons her closer, reiterating his desire for intimacy. Kurumi stands still for a moment, then resolutely shakes her head, declaring that it simply won't happen. The boy shrugs, nonchalantly remarking that if she declines, her final conversation on Earth will merely be this: being propositioned by a creep. Kurumi clutches her head, groaning and shaking it repeatedly, desperate to escape the harsh reality she's facing. The boy, sensing his plan is gaining traction, gently beckons her to step away from the ledge and come toward him. Just as he thinks he's succeeded, Kurumi's expression shifts from frustration to deep sadness. She softly questions why he's going to such lengths to stop her. With sincerity, he confesses that he likes everything about her and has already prepared himself to be her boyfriend. Kurumi blushes, her defenses momentarily lowering, and she asks if that means he's willing to do anything she asks. But the boy's demeanor turns cold and blunt. He refuses without hesitation, asserting that he won't be her servant. Taken aback by his sudden change, Kurumi is left confused. The boy explains that he seeks a relationship of mutual support, not one that's lopsided or exploitative. He then goes on to clarify his ultimate suggestion. Kurumi stood frozen, utterly taken aback by the boy's audacious proposal. He dared her to accept or reject a proposal from someone he self-proclaimed as a pervert, leaving her flustered and unsure of which option seemed more absurd. Despite his persistent encouragement to accept, Kurumi found herself stammering a refusal. Yet, in a moment of unexpected resolve, she climbed over the safety railing, returning to the solid ground of the rooftop. The boy, unfazed, immediately launched into a vision of building a happy, harmonious family together. Kurumi snapped back, reminding him of her rejection, to which he questioned her return over the railing. She simply turned away, muttering a change of heart. The boy's smile widened, and with a mischievous glint, he asked once more to sleep with her. Kurumi's response was swift and decisive, a firm kick to his stomach, accompanied by a declaration that his porn brain belonged in hell. As she took a deep breath, a genuine smile crept onto her lips, acknowledging that she had never encountered anyone quite like him before. With a teasing glint in her eye, she mockingly asks if she can take a little of the love and affection he had mentioned earlier, before turning towards the rooftop exit with a playful goodbye. As she walks away, the boy watches her, confessing to the empty air his complete obsession with her. He recalls a time when the world seemed to turn against him for the simple act of reading a girl's magazine, feeling the crushing weight of isolation and wishing he could vanish to escape the mockery. It was then that Kurumi appeared, stepping forward to defend him with unexpected kindness, leaving him utterly stunned. Now, Kasamiya wakes up in his bed, the morning light filtering in, and rubs his eyes sleepily, the remnants of that nostalgic dream still lingering in his mind. He realizes it was a memory from a time that feels both distant and vivid. Later that morning, as Kasamiya walks through the bustling school corridor, he spots Kurumi ahead and calls out a cheerful good morning. She acknowledges him with a polite nod, but Kasamiya notices her lack of energy and observes her closely. He remarks on her unusually lethargic appearance, teasingly suggesting that he had specifically prepared his ears that morning to feel her voice vibrate against his eardrums. Kurumi frowns, calling his comment disgusting, yet she admits with a sigh that this peculiar behavior might actually be his unique charm. Suddenly, a boisterous voice erupts from behind them. It's Kirishima, the school's golden boy, renowned for his flawless looks and charismatic presence. He throws a heavy arm around Kasamiya's neck, gripping him tightly in a friendly yet forceful headlock, and greets him with a mocking nickname, "Stress me a coin." Kasamiya struggles slightly, questioning the absurdity of the name. Kirishima laughs, insisting it's a fitting title for someone who always seems perpetually stressed. Kasamiya looks exasperated, muttering to himself about regretting ever describing Kirishima as having a perfect personality. Kirishima asks for her opinion on the nickname. To Kasamiya's shock, Kurumi agrees, commenting that being called "Stress me a Kwan" is indeed quite pathetic. Kasamiya glares at Kirishima, feeling betrayed by his alliance with Koga Kurumi's teasing. Kirishima then announces he needs to borrow Kasamiya for a private chat, turning to Kurumi to ask if she minds. Kurumi shrugs indifferently, declaring that Kasamiya is nobody special to her, so there's no need for permission. As Kirishima pulls Kasamiya away, the metaphorical red light of their interaction flashes, leaving Kurumi behind in the hallway. Once out of earshot, Kirishima's playful tone shifts to concern. He asks Kasamiya what's really going on, noting that while Kasamiya is usually a bit high-strung, his current behavior has far exceeded normal stress levels. Kasamiya feigns ignorance, asking for an example. Kirishima specifically points to Kasamiya's tone with Kurumi, urging him to learn how to read the atmosphere and tone things down. Kasamiya's face hardens. Kasamiya sharply tells Kirishima he doesn't need a lecture on reading a room, causing Kirishima to pause, scratch his head in frustration, and let out a long sigh. Kasamiya's voice drops to a low, serious tone, as he explains that if everyone else is content to watch Kurumi suffer in silence, he's perfectly fine with being labeled stressed or even crazy for stepping in. This revelation softens Kirishima's expression, and he tells Kasamiya he finally understands what's going on in his head. Kasamiya's eyes light up with hope, and he eagerly asks if Kirishima truly gets it. Kirishima smiles warmly, nods, and reminds him that they are best friends. Kasamiya exhales a sigh of pure relief, offering a sincere word of thanks. From afar, Kurumi observes their exchange, picturing it as a lovely display of male camaraderie. If only one of them wasn't suddenly asking her to sleep with him. With her friend's encouragement, Kasamiya turns to Kirishima and bravely admits that he genuinely likes Kurumi, hoping for a final affirmation. As the clock struck noon, the school bell rang, heralding the lunch break. Kasamiya sprang to his feet, making a beeline for Kurumi, who sat quietly at her desk. Leaning over, he invited her to join him for lunch, but Kurumi, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment, quickly turned him down. Kasamiya nodded, seemingly accepting her refusal. But then, to her bewilderment, he pulled up a chair and began unpacking his lunchbox right there at her desk. Kurumi watched him, puzzled by his contradictory actions of appearing to give up, yet refusing to leave. When she questioned his actions, Kasamiya simply declared he was driven by love. Kurumi scoffed, dismissing the notion as ridiculous. Kasamiya opened his bento to reveal an onigiri, picked one up, and offered it to her, a look of genuine concern crossing his face. He wondered if he'd made a mistake, wondering if she disliked pickled plums, and offered to eat them all himself if she did. Kurumi made it clear that it wasn't about the plums, but the whole situation felt a bit strange. Kasamiya was really surprised, and wanted to know what was going on. Kurumi explained that eating the onigiri he touched and bitten into would be like giving an indirect kiss. Kasamiya suddenly leaps to his feet, his eyes widening with a mix of determination and excitement. He declares that if that's the case, he'll devour the entire thing swiftly, eager to move on to a genuine kiss without any hesitation. Kurumi, exasperated, lets out a long sigh, convinced that this boy is utterly stressed out of his mind. Despite herself, she giggles, acknowledging that his antics are incredibly unsettling. Kasamiya freezes, captivated by the sight of her laughter, her cheeks tinged with a slight red hue. Enchanted, he reaches out and gently cups her face with both hands. Kurumi flinches, feeling uneasy, and questions his actions. With complete sincerity, Kasamiya suggests they should probably just get married, leaving Kurumi in shock once more, pondering what on earth is going on in his head. Suddenly, muffled snickers and whispers ripple through the classroom, shifting the atmosphere and casting a shadow over Kurumi's expression. Noticing the change, Kasamiya inquires about what's wrong. Kurumi's icy words cut through the air as she coldly advised him to avoid speaking to her altogether. With a swift motion, she stood, flung open the classroom door, and vanished into the hallway. Kasamiya, driven by a mix of concern and urgency, attempted to follow her, only to be halted by a firm grip on his shoulder. Turning, he found himself face to face with a burly teacher who addressed him by name. The sensei, ignoring Kasamiya's protests about being in a hurry, insisted on a conversation. He revealed that the homeroom teacher was deeply troubled by Kurumi's growing isolation and her refusal to speak to anyone, demanding to know what was happening with her. Caught off guard and unable to articulate the depth of her suicidal thoughts, Kasamiya impulsively blurted out that love was the reason, before rushing back to the classroom. His heart sank at the sight of Kurumi's desk, defiled with cruel, hateful graffiti. His fists clenched, and his body shook with rage at the harsh reality Kurumi faced. In the background, a group of girls gossiped loudly, branding her a loser, and sneering that Kasamiya was overreacting, whispering that he would eventually tire of her. From across the room, Kurushima watches with a pained, frustrated expression, silently mouthing an apology. Later, when Kurumi returns to her seat, she finds Kasamiya occupying it. He looks up and shares a historical anecdote about Toyotomi Hideyoshi warning Oda Nobunaga's sandals to keep them from the cold. Kurumi stares at him blankly, prompting Kasamiya to explain that he had been sitting there to warm the seat for her. Despite her calling him an idiot, Kasamiya playfully insists he is the Hideyoshi to her Nobunaga, essentially her devoted husband. He stands to let her sit, and as Kurumi settles in, she mutters that the chair is only lukewarm. Kasamiya feigns offense, questioning how that could be, when his love for her burns so fiercely. Kurumi blushes, calling his words disgusting, and telling him once more to stop talking to her. Kasamiya simply smiles, and asks if they can walk home together. Kurumi refuses, stating it's impossible, to which Kasamiya inquires why, expressing his desire to walk with the person he likes. Kurumi, her cheeks flushed with a deeper blush, mutters a dismissive whatever. She questions his persistent attempts to converse, to which he responds with his usual heartfelt reason, he likes her. Kurumi's expression turns serious as she warns him against being seen with her, fearing the trouble she might bring to those around her. Kasamiya, undeterred, shakes his head and declares his desire to spend time with her, and remain by her side forever. A gust of wind sweeps between them, and tears begin to trace down Kurumi's cheeks. She gazes at him, her voice soft, as she asks if it's truly okay for him to be with her. Kasamiya, with sincerity in his eyes, replies that it is he who should seek her permission. In that moment, Kurumi offers a small, genuine smile, granting her consent with a simple, "It's okay." Kasamiya was utterly captivated by Kurumi's smile, and without hesitation, he proposed marriage once more. However, Kurumi brushed off the proposal with a nonchalant question about whether they would walk home together. Seizing the moment, Kasamiya asked if they could hold hands, but Kurumi quickly reminded him not to get ahead of himself. Undeterred, he inquired about exchanging contact information, leaving Kurumi to size him up, puzzled by his audacity. As Kurumi dozed off on the sofa, she held Kasamiya close, her arms wrapped around him naturally. Yet, Kasamiya remained stiff, his body tense and nervous, unable to comprehend the situation or find clarity in his thoughts. Earlier at school, Kasamiya had engaged Kurumi in a serious conversation about their future, discussing the number of children they might want and how to finance a house through a mortgage. He spoke earnestly, sharing his ideas while Kurumi listened quietly, showing no interest in responding or engaging with the conversation. Kasamiya, eager to steer the conversation towards something more mundane, ponders aloud whether Kurumi has brought a lunchbox that day. His actions subtly reveal that convenience store food often doesn't sit well with him. His gaze shifts to Kurumi's lunchbox, and his expression betrays his interest in its contents, hinting at a strong temptation to sample it himself. However, swiftly declines his request without a second thought. Kasamiya, undeterred, attempts to downplay her refusal and continues his gentle persuasion, suggesting that if he ever mastered the art of cooking delicious meals, he would eagerly share them with her. Yet Kurumi remains resolute, making it abundantly clear that she has no plans to share her lunch with him at the moment. Amidst this exchange, a girl stands between them, her irritation palpable as she feels overlooked by both Kurumi and Kasamiya. The two of them, initially oblivious, finally notice her presence and exchange puzzled glances before falling silent. Her frustration mounts as she continues to feel ignored. Eventually, Kasamiya turns his attention to her, inquiring if she has any business with them. Kasamiya exudes an air of confidence, convinced that he and Kurumi are sharing a private moment, viewing her presence as nothing more than an unwelcome intrusion. Ogura Shireb, known for her penchant for spreading rumors about Kurumi at school, watches with a look of disgust, feeling uneasy about the scene unfolding before her. Kasamiya, sensing her gaze, turns to question why she continues to stare, wondering if there's something peculiar about him. Ogura, who harbors a strong aversion to Kurumi, isn't particularly concerned about Kurumi's alleged affection for the odd boy. Instead, she finds their antics disruptive and resents the unnecessary fuss Kurumi seems to stir up. However, Kurumi surprises Ogura by denying any romantic behavior, explaining that their encounter is purely coincidental, and even agreeing with Ogura that being intimate with someone like Kasamiya would indeed be odd, leaving Kasamiya feeling profoundly wounded. Despite Kurumi's insistence that she doesn't want affection, Casimir remains convinced otherwise, believing she secretly craves it. Meanwhile, Ogura's frustration melts as she grows tired of being overlooked by the pair. The tension between Ogura and Kasamiya escalates, leading Kasamiya to demand Ogura's departure. Ogura, however, declares that her disdain for Kasamiya surpasses even her hatred for Kurumi. A sentiment Kasamiya reciprocates, admitting his own dislike for Ogura. Kurumi intervenes, urging Kasamiya to temper his behavior, which he does with an exaggerated show of respect. Kurumi, observing this, is surprised by Kasamiya's unexpectedly cool demeanor. As she begins to walk away, Kasamiya quickly questions her destination, prompting Kurumi to retort that such inquiries are inappropriate for a woman. With that, she continues on her way, leaving the situation to simmer. As the sound of footsteps reverberates through the classroom, Kurumi makes her entrance, drenched from head to toe. The male student, having just finished wiping the chalkboard, signals that the previous lesson has concluded. Kurumi's quiet, hunched walk draws a small, mocking laugh from Ogura, who stands nearby. Casimir, however, approaches Ogura with palpable hostility, his aggression and intense resentment evident. Ogura, puzzled by Casimir's sudden change in demeanor, watches as Kurumi, visibly cold and shivering, stands in the dampness of her clothes. In a surprising gesture of kindness, Casimir removes his jacket and gently drapes it over Kurumi's wet body, offering her some warmth and comfort. As the evening drew to a close, he proposed they head home together, and Kurumi, with a nod of agreement, joined him as they made their way to the exit. Ogura, however, watched their departure with a scowl, her displeasure evident as she muttered curses under her breath. The duo soon found themselves in a taxi, their destination being Kurumi's apartment. This time, Kurumi, perhaps feeling a bit more at ease, invited Kasamiya inside. She excused herself to freshen up with a shower, leaving Kasamiya to wait. His eagerness to assist her was palpable, but Kurumi's irritation was clear. Her warning was unmistakable. Any attempt to enter the bathroom would be met with force. Undeterred, merely smiled with an overly optimistic grin, clinging to the notion of sharing the moment with her. Kurumi's annoyance simmered beneath the surface. Accepting his limitations, Kasamiya settled onto the sofa, only to be interrupted by the vibration of his phone. A message from Kirishima, who was currently holding on to Kasamiya's bag, awaited him. Kirishima sends a message urging Kasamiya to stay out of Kurumi's affairs, promising the safe return of the bag. Kurumi emerges from the bathroom, her skin still glistening with moisture, and apologizes for leaving Kasamiya alone. Kasamiya is taken aback, unable to conceal his astonishment, and internally marvels at her perfection. Kurumi kindly offers him tea, coffee, or another warm drink, and they sit side by side with 2 steaming cups. Kasamiya can't help but feel they look like a newlywed couple, and he daydreams about sharing a flawless home with Kurumi, being admired by others as the perfect pair. Yet, Kurumi sits quietly, her head bowed, and Kasamiya, sensing her fatigue, remains silent. Kurumi, with a hint of suspicion, questions Kasamiya about his reluctance to encourage her to open up about her struggles. Kasamiya simply smiles, silently conveying that he already grasps much of her situation without needing her to elaborate. Kurumi, not one to mince words, accuses him of behaving like a stalker, her remark laced with a sharp edge. Kasamiya, visibly embarrassed, admits that his keen awareness stems from his close attention to her. Kurumi insists that such behavior is precisely what defines a stalker. She takes a sip from her glass and heads to the kitchen bar, returning moments later with 2 bottles of wine. Kasamiya, recognizing the alcoholic nature of the drinks and noting their underage status, points out that they shouldn't be consuming them. Kurumi confesses she's never tried alcohol before and expresses a desire to experience it before ending her life. In that moment, Kasamiya realizes the depth of Kurumi's solitary struggle. She grips a can of alcohol and proposes they hold a drinking party that night. Kasamiya considers that this might alleviate Kurumi's suffering and, with a newfound enthusiasm, agrees. Kurumi, with a curious glint in her eye, probes Kasamiya to ensure he's truly committed to her invitation. Kasamiya, with a reassuring smile, confirms his eagerness, genuinely thrilled to be included for the first time. His excitement is palpable as he reaches for a can of alcohol, his hand trembling slightly with anticipation. With a bold declaration, he insists that after this lively gathering, a formal date must be their next priority. Raising his drink triumphantly, he calls for a toast to mark this special occasion. Kurumi, ever the cautious one, meets his gaze with skepticism, firmly stating that she has no plans for anything scandalous, no matter how much she might indulge. Kasamiya's attention is then captured by a row of bottles on the table, his eyes widening at the sight of one with a staggering 96% alcohol content, the strongest in the world. As he begins to pour this potent elixir into a glass, he hesitates, considering the amount. Wisely, he opts for just a small splash, mindful of the drink's formidable strength. With the glass poised before them, Kasamiya and Kurumi are caught in a moment of intense curiosity, mingled with a hint of hesitation. Before they can take a sip, Kasamiya wisely suggests they nibble on some snacks first, cautioning that drinking on an empty stomach could spell trouble. As they both reach for the snack box simultaneously, their fingers brush, sending a sudden jolt through Kurumi. She flinches, pulling her hand back as if it had been scalded. Kasamiya, puzzled by her dramatic reaction, watches as Kurumi stammers an excuse, claiming she was merely startled by the unexpected touch. To gauge her response, Kasamiya gently pokes her arm, only to make her jump even more. In her flustered state, Kurumi's arm sweeps across the table, inadvertently toppling over a bottle of expensive wine. They both watch in slow motion as the dark liquid spills across the floor. A scene that leaves Kurumi mortified, acutely aware of the bottle's hefty price tag. Kasamiya, his playful facade instantly shattered, apologizes profusely, attributing the mishap to his excessive antics. Yet Kurumi's thoughts are far from the wine's loss. Her mind is adrift elsewhere. As the night deepens and the clock strikes 10 p.m., several bottles lie open and half empty on the table, the alcohol weaving its intoxicating spell. Kurumi, now visibly tipsy, erupts in a sudden outburst, her voice rising with the release of pent-up emotions. She demands to know why she must endure such merciless bullying at school. Kasamiya, equally swayed by the drinks, nods fervently, his voice booming in agreement as he expresses his own simmering fury at the situation. Kurumi squints at Kasamiya, her eyes narrowing as she comments on his uncanny ability to understand her soul, despite his reputation as a stalker. Kasamiya, his voice a mix of slurred sincerity, insists that his insights stem from pure love, not obsession. Kurumi, intrigued, ponders whether love could indeed drive someone to such lengths. She confronts him directly, asking if he genuinely likes her. Kasamiya, with a booming voice, declares his feelings are authentic. He notices the strong scent of alcohol emanating from Kurumi. She playfully teases him, suggesting he might be aroused by the aroma of whiskey-filled chocolates. Kasamiya's heart races, and he blurts out that if that's true, they should take things further. To his astonishment, Kurumi doesn't immediately refuse. Instead, she pauses to consider the possibility. Kasamiya can hardly believe she's even considering it, the reality of the situation dawning on her. Kurumi finally breaks the silence, acknowledging the depth of his feelings, but reminding him that their conversation has only just begun tonight. With surprising candor, she admits she's never done this before and is still a virgin, leaving Kasamiya utterly stunned. Kurumi, with a hint of relief, questions if he didn't already know, given his stalker tendencies. She reaches out, placing a hand on his shoulder, and draws him closer, asking if he truly wants to go through with it, urging him to look her straight in the eye. Before he can respond, Kurumi leans in and kisses him, leaving Kasamiya paralyzed with shock as they share a drunken kiss. When they finally pull apart, they gaze at each other, softly whispering each other's names. Kurumi leans forward, wrapping her arms around him in a tight embrace. The weight of the day and the alcohol finally take their toll, and she drifts off to sleep right there in his lap. Kasamiya is caught completely off guard, unable and unwilling to move. Eventually, exhaustion takes over, and they find themselves lying together on the sofa as the quiet of the night envelops them. As the night deepens, the silence is only disturbed by the soft hum of the appliances. Kurumi slowly opens her eyes, her vision initially blurry as she surveys the cluttered table. Cans of alcohol are scattered across the surface, a messy testament to their earlier antics. Her head throbs with a dull, persistent ache, and she mutters to herself, puzzled about why she fell asleep in such a place. She lets out a long, weary yawn, while beside her, Kasamiya sits with a dazed, silly grin, clearly still lost in a drunken fog. As the fog in her mind begins to lift, a sharp memory pierces through her hangover. She freezes, her hand instinctively flying to her lips, as the realization hits her like a physical blow. Her eyes widen in disbelief as she grapples with the memory, trying to make sense of it all. The hangover blurs the edges of reality, making everything feel like a dream. She sits in stunned silence, the weight of the previous night pressing down on her, until it bursts forth in a panicked scream. The truth of having kissed Kasamiya, of all people, finally hits her like a tidal wave. Kasamiya, the peculiar, overly forward boy who had the nerve to ask for intimacy on their very first meeting, the one who suddenly declared his love for her out of the blue. She tries to steady her racing heart, convincing herself that perhaps he was too inebriated to care or remember her words. Yet, a persistent whisper in her mind hints at a different side to him, one she can't quite ignore. She recalls how he chose to stay by her side when she was at her lowest, putting her well-being above his own desires. Catching herself mid-thought, she blushes furiously at the realization that she is actually finding him cool. Her eyes drift back to the table, and she suddenly notices something strange. The cans she thought they had finished are actually still sealed. With a start, she realizes her drunkenness wasn't from the drinks at all, but likely from the high-concentration whiskey chocolates. She had heard that the evaporating alcohol from such sweets could mimic a state of intoxication. Glancing at Kasamiya, who is still swaying slightly, she decides that since the hour is so late, it would be irresponsible to send him home, resolving to let him stay the night. Her eyes land on the smartphone clutched in his hand, and a spark of curiosity gets the better of her. She carefully slipped the phone from his grasp, causing Kasamiya to stir. With a heavy drunken slur, he muttered a good morning, blissfully unaware that it was still the middle of the night. Kurumi, playing along with his confusion, suggested he take a shower to clear his head. He nodded drowsily and stumbled toward the bathroom, but not before letting out a shout, proposing they pick up where they left off. Kurumi swiftly dismissed his suggestion, reminding him that he had initiated everything the previous night, and that they were both under the influence. Kasamiya stopped dead in his tracks, clearly hurt, and wondered if she was trying to embarrass him. She pointed out that she had started the kiss. Kurumi stands frozen, the memory of her own boldness crashing over her like a tidal wave. Kasamiya, undeterred, continues his tirade, recounting with blunt honesty how her tongue had danced inside his mouth, leaving him panicked and embarrassed. Overwhelmed, Kurumi claps her hands over her ears, her voice rising in a desperate plea for him to hurry up and get in the shower. Once he emerges, she offers him a glass of water, her voice firm as she declares that he will be sleeping on the sofa tonight. Kasamiya's face crumples, a mask of deep disappointment settling over his features. Sensing his distress, Kurumi questions the look, prompting Kasamiya to launch into a practical, albeit desperate, explanation. He points out that October is drawing to a close, with temperatures plummeting rapidly. He argues that sharing a bed would allow their body heat to keep them warm, suggesting that they sleep together for safety. Kurumi is exasperated, her patience wearing thin as she firmly tells him no, pointing out that her bed is barely large enough for one person. She eyes him suspiciously, questioning if he can truly promise not to try anything weird. Sensing a crack in her resolve, Kasamiya reassures her that he will follow her lead and do only what she wants. Kurumi, still cautious, asks if he's finished his tea yet. Upon receiving an affirmative answer, she finally relents, granting him permission to sleep in her room for this one night only. Kasamiya's disappointment melts away, replaced by pure, unadulterated joy. He practically skips toward the bedroom, inviting her to join him. Once inside, they both lie down under the same blanket, positioned back to back at the very edges of the mattress. Kasamiya is hit by a wave of exhaustion so strong that his body feels incredibly heavy. It is a fatigue level that seems almost unnatural, even after a night of drinking. Kurumi, restless and unable to sleep, shifts her position and climbs atop him, gazing intently at his face. With a solemn expression, she whispers an invitation for them to finally take their relationship to the next level. Yet as her words hang in the air, Kasamiya's eyes grow heavy, his strength wanes, and he drifts into a deep, dark slumber, leaving her invitation unanswered. Her gaze fixed intently on the stove as she insists she's absolutely fine. Kasamiya leans in, his curiosity piqued, to inspect the meal she's prepared. His eyes widen with delight at the sight of the food, which looks both delicious and expertly crafted. As they settle at the table to enjoy their meal, Kasamiya can't resist showering her with praise, calling her a wonderful wife. Kurumi, however, is quick to challenge him, questioning why he assumes she'll be his wife. With a playful glint in her eye, she teases that she might just end up marrying someone else entirely. Kasamiya flinches, his heart skipping a beat at the thought. Kurumi then points out the stark reality that they aren't even officially dating yet. Overwhelmed by the delectable meal or perhaps lost in his own thoughts, Kasamiya misses her last comment and asks her to repeat it. Kurumi, however, remains firm, refusing to say it again. Instead, she offers a polite bon appetit and begins to eat, leaving her statement lingering in the air, a tantalizing mystery. As they finish their meal, Kasamiya's expression turns serious, and he inquires about Kurumi's plans for school. Kurumi, already clad in her full uniform with a posture that exudes straightness and determination, responds with a bluntness that matches her attire. She declares her intention to attend classes as usual, despite the harsh bullying and the unsettling incidents from the previous day. Kasamiya, sensing the gravity of her decision, questions her resolve, but quickly softens his tone, offering an apology for his doubts. His heart swells with happiness as he witnesses her renewed spirit, a testament to her resilience. Kurumi, with a small, determined smile, adjusts her school tie in the mirror, reassuring him that she is okay now, and that this is precisely why she feels compelled to return. Kasamiya watches her, utterly captivated by her toughness and inner strength, the very qualities that first drew him to her. When Kurumi teases him about his embarrassing confessions, Kasamiya sheepishly admits that his thoughts often escape his lips before he can rein them in. Kurumi shakes her head, dismissing his flattery for the moment, and urges Kasamiya to stop dawdling and get ready so they won't be late. Energized by her command, Kasamiya nods and begins gathering his things. As they arrive at the school gates, they immediately capture the attention of their peers. Groups of students huddle together, whispering behind their hands, speculating about the sudden closeness between Kasamiya and Kurumi. Kasamiya turns his head, his gaze lingering on Kurumi's face. Sensing his stare, Kurumi, with a hint of anxiety, asks what he's looking at. Kasamiya simply replies that he was just thinking about how cute she looks today and how much he likes her. Kurumi jumps back, her movements suddenly awkward and stiff, and wonders why he keeps saying those things in front of everyone. Kasamiya pretends to be hurt, calling her cruel, but Kurumi quickly explains that she isn't really upset at all. She feels quite happy. Kasamiya playfully teases Kurumi, suggesting she's entered her dear phase, but Kurumi quickly denies it. Their banter is cut short by the arrival of Kirishima, who approaches with a knowing smirk, commenting on how they're already heating things up so early. Kasamiya questions his assumption, while Kirishima simply smiles, and turns the question to Kurumi. Before she can respond, Kasamiya loudly whispers that they're exchanging a massive amount of love, leaving Kurumi mortified. She pleads with him not to say such things aloud, especially since she hasn't agreed to that dynamic. As they walk toward the building, Kurishima expresses genuine surprise at the rapid progression of his friend's relationship. Kasamiya beams, saying their feelings are a two-way street, but Kurumi quickly brushes him off, pointing out that it's just his one-sided obsession. As the school bell chimes, signaling the start of classes, Kirishima playfully hands Kasamiya his bag, which he had been holding hostage, and urges them to hurry. Kurumi watches the two boys, intrigued by the closeness of their friendship. Kasamiya takes a moment to clarify that while Kirishima is a fantastic friend, his heart belongs solely to Kurumi. He then surprises her by suggesting she meet his younger sister. When Kurumi questions his reasoning, Kasamiya casually mentions that his sister is kind and will eventually become her sister-in-law, so there's no need to worry. Kurumi, puzzled by his certainty about their future marriage, admits she feels foolish for taking his bold words seriously. Suddenly, Kasamiya's face turns pale as he glances at the clock, realizing they are officially late. In a burst of urgency, he grabs Kurumi's hand firmly and pulls her into a sprint. They burst through the classroom door, only to be met with the stern gaze of the class rep, who is already standing at the front, ready to deliver her reprimand. With a firm voice, she informed them of their tardiness and instructed them to report to the guidance office later. As they made their way to their desks, Kasamiya's attention was drawn to Ogura, who sat alone, looking uncomfortable and isolated. Despite his solitude, he quickly refocused on Kurumi and their upcoming meeting with the counselor. Arriving at the office, they were taken aback by the presence of a male teacher, who surprised them both. He offered a heartfelt apology to Kurumi for the school's failure to protect her from bullying, and expressed gratitude to Kasamiya for stepping in to help her. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, he graciously waived any punishment for their lateness and sent them back to class. Beneath the serene surface of their morning routine, a hidden truth gnaws at Kurumi's conscience. The previous night, Kasamiya had poured his heart out, declaring his love for hours. Yet, as soon as they hit the bed, he was out cold in just 10 seconds, not merely from exhaustion. Kurumi had discreetly spiked his drink with sleeping pills, intending only to enjoy a peaceful night's sleep. However, seeing him there had stirred unexpected desires within her. As she looks at him, a silent, heavy realization dawns. She had taken advantage of his vulnerability to fulfill her own hidden cravings. Later, after school, Kasamiya inquires if Kurumi plans to visit his house the next day. Curious, Kurumi asks why. Kasamiya explains that he had once mentioned wanting to introduce her to his younger sister, who will be home all weekend, making it the perfect opportunity. Kurumi was taken aback when Kasamiya showed genuine interest in his idea, not expecting him to be so serious about it. Kasamiya, however, remained steadfast in his sincerity, convinced that he was ready to go to great lengths for Kurumi. He eagerly saw her opinion once more, and after a moment of consideration, Kurumi replied that she was free the following day, making a visit possible. Kasamiya's excitement was palpable, his enthusiasm so overwhelming that Kurumi couldn't help but blush and comment on how excessive his reaction seemed. Determined to make a good impression, Kasamiya spent the day meticulously preparing. He tidied up, cleared his search history, and thoughtfully removed anything inappropriate from his room, ensuring everything was just right for Kurumi's visit. Outside, Kurumi stands patiently, her ears attuned to the lively commotion emanating from within the house. Kasamiya's voice rings out, a testament to his earnest efforts. Inside, his younger sister muses aloud about whether Kasamiya should call a friend and if he has the time to spare. Kasamiya nods in agreement. As he swings open the door, he is greeted by Kurumi, who is already poised at the entrance. She offers a sincere apology for making him wait. Kasamiya is utterly entranced by her appearance. Draped in a long, elegant outfit, Kurumi exudes grace, and Kasamiya can't help but express how perfectly it suits her, filling him with joy. His younger sister, observing his peculiar behavior, watches as Kasamiya dramatically claims that Kurumi's cuteness nearly gives him a heart attack. Kurumi, filled with concern, urges Kasamiya to quickly show her the house. A young girl with shoulder-length hair greets them, introducing herself as Kasumi, Kasamiya's younger sister. Kurumi reciprocates by sharing her full name, which immediately rings a bell for Kasumi. She suddenly realizes that Kurumi is the girl her brother admires the most. This revelation sparks suspicion in Kasumi, leading her to wonder if Kasamiya has somehow kidnapped Kurumi or done something untoward. With a teasing tone, she questions how Kasamiya could possibly bring such a beautiful woman home, even half-jokingly suggesting that he might have used hypnosis. Kurumi responds with a light laugh, while Kasamiya lets out a heavy sigh at the unfounded accusations. As the tension eases, Kurumi and Kasumi naturally begin holding hands. Kasumi's curiosity is piqued, and she eagerly asks a flurry of questions about Kurumi, delving into her hobbies, favorite foods, and extracurricular activities. As the evening unfolds, it becomes evident that Kasumi and Kurumi quickly discover a delightful chemistry between them, sparking a lively connection. Meanwhile, Kasamiya finds himself feeling a bit sidelined, having hoped that his sister Kasumi, who leads a hectic life in the modeling world, would form a close friendship with Kurumi. Observing their easy rapport, Kasamiya feels as though his sister has taken the spotlight, leaving him in the shadows. Sensing the tension, turns to Kasamiya with a hint of surprise, inquiring if there's something special between him and Kurumi. Kurumi promptly dispels any misconceptions, assuring her that there's nothing of the sort. Once inside Kasumi's room, she questions her brother's sincerity about bringing everyone together. Kasamiya nods, expressing his desire to kick things off with some games. As they settle in, each gripping a game controller, Kasamiya can't help but notice Kasumi strategically positioning herself between him and Kurumi, prompting him to wonder about her intentions. Kasumi playfully warns Kurumi that sitting next to each other might lead to Kasamiya taking advantage of the situation, jokingly describing her brother as indecent and urging Kurumi to report anything suspicious. To ensure Kurumi feels supported, Kasumi shares her phone contact, and Kurumi gratefully accepts. The trio then dives into a thrilling 3-character racing game, where Kasumi's experience shines through as she clinches first place. Kurumi races to a commendable second, and Kasamiya finishes last. Kasumi proudly notes her frequent gaming sessions compared to her brothers. Kurumi, ever gracious, congratulates Kasumi with genuine admiration. As the game wraps up, Kasumiya's growling stomach signals it's time for dinner, and he takes the lead in preparing the ingredients himself. Casimir, determined to host a perfect meal for his guest Kurumi, insists on handling everything himself, despite Kurumi's offer to help. Kasumi's confidence wavers slightly, but he presses on. The meal culminates in a grand display, as Kasamiya unveils a large pot of yashinabe, infused with his secret seasoning. The dish captivates everyone with its mouth-watering appearance, and Kasamiya, deeply moved by the moment, nearly sheds tears, viewing the meal as a heartfelt gesture towards Kurumi. The trio dives into the feast with gusto, emerging from the table, feeling utterly satisfied and joyful. Kasamiya then suggests that Kurumi and Kasumi take some time to unwind together. Kasumi seizes the opportunity, inviting Kurumi to play games once more, to which she eagerly agrees. As they engage in their playful activities, Kasumi curiously inquires about Kurumi's relationship with her brother. Kurumi clarifies that she is not romantically involved with Kasamiya. Kasumi, with a curious glint in her eyes, probes into the nature of Kurumi and Kasamiya's relationship, starting with a question about holding hands. Kurumi, with a hint of a smile, confirms they have. The inquiry deepens as Kasumi asks if they've hugged, and once again Kurumi nods in affirmation. The atmosphere shifts when Kasumi broaches the topic of kissing, causing Kurumi's cheeks to flush a vibrant red. Realizing her reaction is visible, Kurumi pleads with Kasumi not to notice or stare. But Kasumi, undeterred, presses on with a question she insists must be answered. Does Kurumi like Kasamiya? The room seems to hold its breath, as Kurumi's face turns even redder, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. With a voice barely above a whisper, she confesses her feelings. Meanwhile, outside, Kasamiya waits patiently, jacket on, ready to escort Kasumi to the station. Kurumi walks beside Kasumi, her heart a whirlwind of emotions. In a sudden twist, Kasumi gives Kurumi a gentle push from behind, leaving Kurumi bewildered. Through her actions, Kasumi communicates her intention to return Kurumi to her older brother, Tasaniya. Kasaniya, however, is quick to react, insisting that Kurumi was never lent to Kasumi and that she is meant to stay by his side forever. Kurumi stands her ground, declaring that she does not belong to Kasamiya. Kasamiya, not one to back down, rephrases his words, suggesting that Kurumi is the most important person in his life. Meanwhile, Kasumi cleverly hides behind a wall, feigning unfinished homework, as an excuse for Kurumi and Kasamiya to spend time together. Kasamiya then offers to walk Kurumi to the station, and she agrees, leading to an awkward silence as they walk side by side. After a brief moment, Kasamiya extends his jacket to Kurumi, ensuring she stays warm, and she graciously accepts, thanking him for his kindness. As she slips into the jacket, a comforting warmth envelops her, melting away the chill. They stroll together, both of them tinged with a gentle blush, their faces betraying a quiet embarrassment. Suddenly, an urge to speak grips them simultaneously, but Kurumi graciously lets Kasamiya take the lead. Her heart races, each beat echoing loudly in her ears. Kasamiya, with sincerity, confesses that his feelings for Kurumi are overwhelming, and he can no longer suppress them. He eagerly seeks to understand her feelings in return. Kurumi's heart thunders in her chest, feeling as though it might leap out. She admits she does not hate Kasamiya, which is a revelation that fills him with hopeful excitement, leaving him to wonder if her words hint at a love that mirrors his own. As Kasamiya watched Kurumi's cheeks flush with a vibrant red, a surge of excitement led him to propose an unexpected detour. Instead of heading to the station, he suggested they make their way directly to the city hall to register for marriage. Kurumi's eyes widened in surprise, and she hesitated, questioning if Kasamiya was truly serious about marrying her. Her voice trembled as she confessed her reluctance towards marriage. Kasamiya, taken aback by her response, quickly reassured her, offering to lower his expectations if marriage seemed overwhelming. With determination, he clenched his fist and poured his heart out, asking if she would be willing to become his girlfriend instead. Touched by his sincerity, Kurumi agreed, and as they resumed their walk, the air between them buzzed with a newfound closeness. Hand in hand, Kasamiya suddenly halted, his mind racing with bold ideas, suggesting they take a daring step forward. However, Kurumi, still cautious, gently refused his proposal. Kasamiya, curious about Kurumi's reluctance, listens as she explains her preference for keeping intimate moments private, finding public displays embarrassing. With a gentle embrace, Kurumi assures him that a hug suffices, and Kasamiya, respecting her wishes, agrees to hold back for now. He inquires about her happiness, and Kurumi nods, content. Kasamiya confesses his desire to be with her constantly, surprising Kurumi slightly. Though she doesn't mind his company, she chooses to be patient for the day. Rising onto her toes, she admits her fondness for him, before bidding farewell and leaving Kasamiya in a state of shock. Once home, Kurumi carefully hangs his jacket, her mind lingering on his earlier confession. Despite her initial intentions to keep things light, she finds herself overwhelmed by her feelings. In a quiet moment of introspection, Kurumi finds herself grappling with a restless desire for Kasamiya that she can no longer ignore. As she reflects on these unfamiliar emotions, she realizes she has never fully acknowledged them before. Meanwhile, Kasamiya endures the unbearable crowdedness of the train on Monday, a daily reminder of the depression that once compelled him to attend school. Yet as he walks beside Kurumi, he experiences a profound shift, feeling that this oppressive feeling has vanished and will not return. Overwhelmed by joy, Kasamiya suddenly exclaims that everything feels perfect, leaving Kurumi puzzled by his outburst. Kasamiya confesses that his happiness slipped out unintentionally, prompting Kurumi to awkwardly admit her own happiness, her voice tinged with shyness. Kasamiya asks her to repeat it, and Kurumi, suspecting he is teasing her, assumes he is lying when he insists he genuinely didn't hear her clearly. In the classroom, Kasamiya's restlessness was palpable as he sat next to Kurumi, feeling both fortunate and eager for the upcoming seat reshuffling. Kasamiya, who playfully considered Kurumi his wife, was delighted when she handed him a bento box, though she quickly denied the title. Despite her initial complaint about Kurumi's roughness, Kasamiya interpreted her preference for their current distance as a sign of her deep love for him. Kurumi, startled by his assumption, admitted her own feelings but struggled to accept them, asking Kasamiya not to push further. Yet the two shared a meal together, their bond evident in the small, meaningful moments they exchanged. Kasamiya savors the meal, convinced that Kurumi's secret seasoning shines through, much to Kurumi's amusement at his naivety. Despite her inner thoughts, she lets him indulge in his praise. However, when Kurumi takes a bite of her own creation, she notices it's slightly burnt, and mentions it to Kasamiya, who agrees it seems a bit overcooked. This realization dampens her spirits, but Kasamiya's comforting words about the food's taste lift her mood. As classes wrap up, Kurumi prepares to head home, but Kasamiya invites her to spend a little more time together. Kurumi inquires about their plans. Kasamiya suggests heading to the game center, or wherever else they fancy, and Kurumi eagerly agrees, though she mentions she only plans to stay for a short while. Upon arrival, they are both taken aback by the sheer number of claw machines that fill the space, their vibrant colors and lively noises creating an exhilarating atmosphere. Instead of diving straight in, they decide to take a leisurely stroll around. Soaking in the sights, they try their luck at several claw machines, each one a new adventure, before pausing for a break. As they sit down, Kurumi remarks on the overwhelming abundance of machines, and Kasamiya watches her closely, curious if Kurumi is truly enjoying herself. Kurumi confesses that she is having a good time, even if she's not entirely sure how to fully appreciate such places. Noticing Kurumi's hesitation around the claw machines and the daunting battle-style arcade games, pauses to ponder a new plan. Suddenly, inspiration strikes, and he suggests they head over to a basketball shooting game, thinking it might be more enjoyable and straightforward for her. Kurumi, intrigued by the idea, steps up to the challenge, and with a confident throw, the ball swishes through the hoop. Kasamiya's face lights up with excitement as he claps and cheers for her success, filling Kurumi with a sense of accomplishment and joy. Riding the wave of enthusiasm, Kurumi playfully challenges Kasamiya to a friendly competition to see who can score the most points. Without a moment's hesitation, Kasamiya eagerly accepts, setting the stage for a spirited showdown. As the game unfolds, Kasamiya's turn arrives, but his shot misses the hoop. Instead of disappointment, he acknowledges Kurumi's impressive energy and stamina, which she confidently attributes to her modeling background. Kurumi shares that she typically maintains her physique through regular exercise, though she admits to a recent lull in activity, leaving her feeling a bit breathless. Kasamiya, in his endearing awkwardness, offers assistance, but Kurumi swiftly deems his gesture inappropriate. Suddenly, a realization strikes Kurumi, causing her to pause and piquing Kasamiya's curiosity. With a playful glint in her eye, she proposes they capture the moment in a photo booth. Kasamiya eagerly agrees, his mind already painting a picture of those photos adorning the walls at their future wedding. As Kurumi and Kasamiya approached the photo booth she had chosen, an unexpected commotion from within caught their attention. Muffled sounds and signs of someone trying to keep their presence hidden sent a jolt of surprise through both of them. Instinctively, Kasamiya's hand shot out, pulling Kurumi away from the booth in a moment of panic. But as they paused, Kurumi gently asked him to stop, her calm demeanor easing his nerves. Kasamiya, realizing his overreaction, apologized, yet Kurumi's reassuring response quickly dispelled the tension, allowing them to move on. Despite the shock of witnessing an indecent couple in such a public place, both Kurumi and Kasamiya were left grappling with their emotions. Kasamiya, trying to make sense of the situation, mused aloud that such behavior should be confined to the privacy of a luxurious hotel, leaving Kurumi puzzled by his implication and wondering what he truly meant. Kasamiya casually mentions an ideal spot for a first experience, but his words unexpectedly transport Kurumi back to a memory of him staying over at her place. The sudden recollection catches her off guard, and Kasamiya, sensing her unease, looks at her with concern. Kurumi quickly brushes it off, insisting it's nothing significant. As the evening deepens, Kasamiya shivers from the cold, and their stroll leads them to a charming taiyaki stand, handing the payment to the vendor with a smile. After receiving the warm treats, he offers one to Kurumi, who gratefully accepts. Her curiosity about the price arises, but Kasamiya playfully evades the question, determined to treat her. For Kurumi, Kasamiya's gesture feels inadequate, as she believes such matters should be handled with care. Kasamiya, however, insists it's a simple token of his affection, urging her to accept it. Kurumi dismisses it with a wry smile, assigning it a value of 120 yen. Kasamiya, puzzled, wonders if that's too little. Kurumi pauses, takes a bite of her taiyaki, and declares it more than sufficient. Kasamiya, eager to share the moment, attempts to eat his own taiyaki, but finds it scalding hot. Kurumi can't resist teasing him, calling him foolish. As they reach the station, Kasamiya ventures to ask if Kurumi would hold his hand. To his surprise, she takes it without hesitation. Noticing his astonishment, Kurumi inquires about his reaction. Kasamiya sheepishly admits he expected her usual refusal, given her frequent denials. Kurumi, her heart racing, finally admits to herself that she has feelings for Kasamiya. noticing the blush creeping up his cheeks. Kasamiya, ever the tease, playfully accuses Kurumi of blushing too, leaving her flustered and contemplating whether to release his hand. But Kasamiya, unwilling to let go, holds firm and questions her hesitation, savoring the closeness of the moment. The following day, a storm brews in Kasamiya's mind, as Ogura becomes the person he despises most, blaming her for driving Kurumi to the edge of despair. This weighty guilt lingers with him. Kasamiya then reveals he has something important to discuss with Kurushima, prompting Hiroshima to jump to the conclusion that it must be about Kurumi, now Kasamiya's first girlfriend. Kasamiya is taken aback by the assumption, his surprise evident on his face. Kurushima, however, remains composed, asserting that the situation is so clear that anyone observing them closely can easily grasp the events between Kasamiya and Kurumi. Kasamiya, choosing to shelve that topic for another day, signals through his demeanor that there is a more urgent matter he wishes to tackle. Kurushima, intrigued by this rare shift in focus, notes that it's uncommon for Kasamiya to show interest in anything beyond Kurumi. He presses on, eager to uncover the truth. Kasamiya then questions whether every misfortune that befalls Ogura is truly her own doing. Kurushima firmly states that the responsibility rests solely with Ogura herself. Reflecting on the aftermath, Kurushima acknowledges that Ogura indeed loses her standing within the class. Kurushima, after much contemplation, concludes that Kasamiya is not to blame for the situation, though he can't quite shake the feeling of an oppressive atmosphere in the classroom, which he acknowledges might be his own fault to voice. Kasamiya, however, quietly disagrees, sensing the complexity of the matter. Their discussion is abruptly interrupted by the teacher's entrance, bringing with it an announcement that sparks excitement among the students. It's time to change seating arrangements for November. The class buzzes with happiness, and Kasamiya subtly conveys his delight to Kurumi. As the teacher begins the drawing from the far left, a sudden realization hits. The lottery papers are missing. With an apologetic nod, the teacher asks the students to hold on while they dash out to retrieve them. With the teacher absent, Kasamiya's gaze shifts back to Kurumi, puzzled by her lack of response to his earlier two-finger gesture. Kurumi candidly explains that reciprocating might lead others to mistakenly believe they are a couple, a notion Kasamiya readily accepts as truth. Yet Kurumi senses a deeper complexity in the situation, her hesitation palpable. As Kasamiya listens, snippets of conversation from nearby students reach his ears. They express a reluctance to sit next to Ogura, fearing they might become bullying targets themselves, and some even accuse Ogura of past harassment. This revelation stirs a wave of irritation in Kurumi, her hands clenching tightly as frustration simmers within her. Unable to remain silent any longer, Kurumi stands up with a commanding presence, her voice cutting through the chaos as she demands that everyone cease their disruptive behavior. Her unexpected outburst catches Kasamiya off guard, and the entire class shifts their focus to her. In this charged atmosphere, Ogura's eyes briefly meet Kurumi's, but the intensity of the moment is too much for her to bear. Without a word, she bolts from the classroom, tears streaming down her face, leaving behind a profound silence that envelops the room. Kasamiya, witnessing Ogura's emotional departure, springs into action, calling out to her as he races after her. Meanwhile, Kurushima, bewildered by Kasamiya's sudden exit, inquires about the unfolding situation. Kasamiya quickly explains that Kurumi is valiantly trying to restore order. He entrusts Kurushima with the responsibility of maintaining calm in the classroom. Kurushima stood bewildered, unable to fully comprehend the urgency in Kasamiya's words. Without a moment to spare, Kasamiya dashed off, determined to catch up with Ogura on the school rooftop. There he found her leaning against the fence, lost in her thoughts and questioning her own actions. Despite her turmoil, Ogura confessed that Kurumi seemed incredibly admirable. Kasamiya called out to her, and she asked if he truly understood her. He replied that if it was a declaration of rivalry aimed at him, he heard it loud and clear. Yet he admitted he had assumed she genuinely despised Kurumi. Ogura clarified that while she did hate Kurumi, she felt conflicted because Kurumi had gone to great lengths to defend her. Kasamiya, curious about Ogura's abrupt departure from the classroom, inquired why she had left so suddenly. Ogura confessed that she didn't want the entire class to witness her in such a pitiful state, and expressed her desire to apologize to Kurumi, hoping to forge a friendship, or at least something akin to it. Kasamiya pondered her words and agreed that it seemed like a wise move. Ogura, puzzled, asked why Kasamiya wasn't upset with her. Kasamiya in turn questioned why he should be angry at all. Ogura voiced her concern that everything was unfolding too smoothly, almost as if it were too good to be true. Kasamiya, however, saw the smooth progress as a positive sign. Ogura, with a hint of hesitation, wondered aloud what might happen if their relationship evolved beyond mere friendship. Kasamiya wisely suggests that they should first focus on building a friendship, leaving any deeper considerations for later. Ogura nods in agreement, appreciating his thoughtful approach. With a warm smile, Kasamiya extends his hand, inviting Ogura to join him back in the classroom. Just as Ogura begins to express another concern, Kasamiya gently reassures her, explaining that Kurumi is already on the mend from her lowest point. This news brings a wave of relief to Ogura, easing her worries. As they turn to leave, Ogura unexpectedly stumbles, but Kasamiya is there in an instant, catching her and steadying her with a reassuring presence. Ogura expressed his gratitude, but Kasamiya brushed it off with a casual remark, saying it was nothing. Suddenly, the rooftop door swung open, and Kurumi burst in, her eyes landing on Ogura, cradled in Kasamiya's arms. Instantly, she perceived the scene as a betrayal, her face contorted with anger and frustration. Kasamiya was caught off guard, and both she and Ogura turned to face Kurumi, who stood there, visibly upset, gripping Kasamiya's arm tightly. Desperate to clear the misunderstanding, Kasamiya attempted to explain that the situation was not as it seemed. Yet, Kurumi insisted that from her vantage point, it was clear that Kasamiya and Ogura were embracing. In a bid to set the record straight, Kasamiya recounted how Ogura had nearly fallen and had only caught her to prevent an injury. In a moment of vulnerability, Kasamiya apologizes for the misunderstanding, prompting Kurumi to question the sincerity of his explanation. Kasamiya counters by asking if she truly believes he would deceive her, to which Kurumi reluctantly admits she doesn't want to see him as a liar. Overcome with emotion, she embraces him tightly, seeking reassurance. Kasamiya gently tells her that she is the only one he likes, both now and in the future. Kurumi pulls away, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment, and comments on how humiliating the moment feels. Seeking validation, she turns to Ogura and asks if Kasamiya is cute. Ogura, without a moment's hesitation, agrees, which only annoys Kurumi further, leading her to demand to know what Ogura has been saying. Kurumi, seeking refuge behind Kasamiya, reveals that she has already alerted everyone in the classroom, prompting a grateful nod from Ogura. With a firm yet vulnerable tone, Kurumi clarifies her feelings, admitting that she hasn't forgiven Ogura for the past bullying and the humiliating incident of pouring water on her. The wounds remain fresh, and Kurumi believes she is the only one still capable of feeling any sympathy for Ogura. As Ogura falls silent, the gravity of the moment envelops her, leaving her thoughts suspended. Kurumi, understanding the situation intimately because she chose to help Ogura, reflects on her own past. She recalls the isolation she felt when no one reached out to her, a sharp, painful sensation that pierced her heart and lingered with quiet suffering. Driven by the haunting experience of loneliness and despair, Kurumi dedicates herself to ensuring no one else endures the same fate. Her actions towards Ogura are rooted in a singular purpose, though she cautions Ogura not to misinterpret her intentions, as forgiveness remains elusive. Acknowledging the gravity of her past actions, admits she never expected Kurumi's forgiveness. Recognizing her behavior as inexcusable. Reflecting on her past foolishness, Ogura confesses that only through experiencing similar pain did she gain understanding. With a heart full of remorse, she pleads for the chance to offer a sincere apology for the cruelty she inflicted. Her words bring a sense of relief and quiet happiness to Kurumi, who listens as Ogura repeats her apology, tears streaming down her face. Kurumi gently approached Ogura, her hand softly caressing her head as she pleaded for her to stop crying. Despite her efforts, Ogura's sobs continued, her emotions overwhelming her. Kasamiya, ever the joker, remarked that he too would appreciate a patted head, but Kurumi swiftly reminded him that humor was inappropriate in such a moment. Ogura, consumed by guilt, kept apologizing, while Kurumi offered her understanding and comfort. As Ogura leaned in, seemingly ready to embrace Kurumi, Kasamiya intervened. A surge of jealousy washed over him, a silent wish that he was the one holding her. The following morning, Kasamiya entered the classroom, exchanging his usual greeting with Ogura, who immediately inquired about Kurumi's absence. Kasamiya casually mentions that Kurumi seems to have overslept, but this news suddenly drains Ogura, who clutches her phone with a weary expression, sensing something amiss. inquires about her friend's sudden change in demeanor, but Ogura brushes it off as nothing. Intrigued, Kasamiya's gaze falls upon the phone screen, revealing an image of an anime hero character. Her curiosity piqued, Kasamiya realizes that Ogura seems to have a fondness for the character. Ogura, with a hint of a smile, confesses that her father is a huge fan, and while she only glances at it occasionally, it's evident she shares his interest. Kasamiya is taken aback by this unexpected revelation, and Ogura sheepishly admits that she has been keeping this passion hidden all along, while Ogura observes a group of female students whispering nearby, noting that there's no one left to conceal her emotions from. In a casual exchange, Kasamiya labels Ogura as a loner, prompting him to question if she truly despises him. Kasamiya, however, surprises him by admitting that he doesn't hate her at all. Instead, he likes her far too much. Ogura is taken aback, grappling with the implications of her words, as Kasamiya leaves him to ponder her confession on his own. Ogura decided to reassure Kurumi by telling her that Kasamiya didn't harbor any ill feelings towards her. However, Kasamiya dismissed the need to relay such an uncertain message. Curious, Kasamiya inquired if Ogura had grown particularly close to Kurumi. Ogura hesitated, admitting she wasn't entirely sure, but revealed that they had been speaking on the phone every night. Kasamiya was taken aback by this unexpected news, adding that Kurumi often drifted off to sleep during their conversations, and she found Kurumi's sleeping voice incredibly endearing. Kasamiya's shock deepened as she realized that Ogura had been listening to Kurumi's sleep, which likely explained why Kurumi had been oversleeping. Ogura conceded that this might indeed be the reason. Kasamiya, curious about the lengthy conversations between Ogura and Kurumi, listens intently as Ogura recounts her apologies and the reasons behind her past actions towards Kurumi. Slowly, Kasamiya begins to grasp the situation. Ogura then inquires if Kasamiya wishes to delve deeper into the details, but Kasamiya feels it's not the right moment for such revelations. Just then, Kurumi arrives, greeting both Kasamiya and Ogura warmly. Kasamiya, unable to resist, compliments Kurumi on his particularly cute appearance today, causing Kurumi to blush, and suggests that such compliments should be reserved for their private moments. Ogura joins in with a greeting, but Kurumi suddenly falls into an awkward silence, his mood noticeably shifted. Concerned, Kasamiya asks if something is amiss. Instead of responding directly, Kurumi softly invites Kasamiya to her house after school. Once the final bell rings, Kasamiya arrives at Kurumi's doorstep as requested. She warmly welcomes him inside, encouraging him to feel at home. Kasamiya offers a brief apology for keeping her waiting. As he settles in, his eyes widen in surprise at Kurumi's attire, which reveals her thighs, a sight that completely catches him off guard. He boldly asks if she intends to seduce him with her choice of clothing. Kurumi's face flushes a deep red as she defensively insists that isn't her intention at all, emphasizing that she has no desire to be a temptress. Kasamiya, still curious, questions why she opted for such an outfit when she typically wears tight, long trousers. Kurumi's frustration bubbled over as she snapped at him, trying to explain her actions. She recalled how he seemed to be thoroughly enjoying his conversation with Ogura that morning, and her voice carried a hint of exasperation. Kasamiya, seeking clarity, prompted Kurumi further, which only intensified her irritation. Kurumi quickly clarified that she wasn't trying to be difficult or dictate who he could talk to. She despised the thought of being controlling. She even confessed that she didn't mind if he spoke to others differently than he did to her. Despite her lengthy explanation, Kasamiya listened intently and delivered a straightforward conclusion. Kurumi was jealous. Kurumi's response was a forced laugh, as she vehemently denied any trace of jealousy, though her words betrayed her true feelings. Kasamiya beams at her with a warm smile, complimenting her on how incredibly cute she looks. Annoyed by his self-satisfied grin, Kurumi snaps at him to stop smiling like that. Kasamiya chuckles, noting that despite the daily showers of love, Kurumi still finds reasons to be jealous. Kurumi, caught off guard, finally admits that her insecurity is rooted in Ogura's larger chest. Kasamiya raises an eyebrow, questioning if that's truly why Kurumi is flaunting her thighs. Realizing she's been caught in her own logic, Kurumi's face flushes with a mix of anger and embarrassment, pleading with him to stop bringing it up. In a surprising turn, Kasamiya requests that Kurumi start calling him by his given name, adding a new layer to their dynamic. Kurumi was taken aback by the suddenness of Kasamiya's idea, her surprise evident in her wide eyes. Kasamiya, ever perceptive, pointed out that she already addressed Kurashima and Ogura by their first names, leaving him to wonder why he was the only one left out. With a hint of embarrassment, Kurumi admitted that saying his name felt far too daunting for her. Kasamiya, sensing an opportunity, suggested that perhaps he wanted to use this moment to coax her into saying it. However, Kurumi firmly refused, insisting that he not take advantage of the situation. She declared that if she were to call him by his name, it would be because she genuinely wanted to, on her own terms. Kasamiya, respecting her decision, nodded in understanding, and expressed his anticipation for the day when she would choose to do so. As Kasamiya stood up, his gaze locked onto hers, and with unwavering sincerity, he confessed that his love for her surpassed anyone else in the world. Kurumi, feeling a mix of emotions, offered him a heartfelt thank you. Kasamiya, however, gently brushed off her gratitude, explaining that expressing his truth was simply who he was. Kurumi fell silent, her voice trembling, as she revealed the deep loneliness she had endured. She admitted that without him, she might not have been there at all. Taking a deep breath, she finally expressed her gratitude for saving her on that fateful day on the rooftop. In a moment of vulnerability, she softly called him by his first name. The sound of it left Kasamiya utterly stunned and speechless. In a moment of silence, Kurumi nudges him, prompting Kasamiya to suddenly propose marriage. She gently tells him they must wait until they're both adults, suggesting they grow up together and tackle adulthood's challenges side by side. Kasamiya reassures her, mentioning he heard the pain only lasts the first time. Kurumi, with a hint of mischief, murmurs that for her, it felt good from the start. Confused, Kasamiya asks her to repeat it, but she quickly brushes it off as nothing, calling him a pervert once more. Kasamiya protests, insisting he's not a pervert, but her husband. Kasamiya smiles, accepting her words, and once more asks if she'll marry him someday. This time, Kurumi agrees, and they make a heartfelt promise to marry when the time is right. Alright everyone, that wraps up today's video. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and let me know in the comments which part you enjoyed the most, and what manga you'd like me to cover next.